So we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, good afternoon. My name is John Naland. Welcome to the American Foreign Service Association. I'm the AFSA Retiree Vice President, but more important for present purposes is I was the director of the Department of State's Office of Retirement for 4 years. It seemed like 5 years, for 4 years. And I wrote a lot of the ALDACs that are still kind of the most current guidance. So in that job, I worked really hard to educate employees about the retirement benefits, and I continue doing that in AFSA. And I also am a reemployed annuitant at the Foreign Service Institute in the retirement planning courses. And if you haven't taken any of those courses, or if you haven't taken them in 5 or 10 years, definitely take them, because that's where you get the official guidance from the Office of Retirement or TSP or Social Security, whatever. So I'm going to give you the unofficial guidance, and my remarks are targeted to the typical person in the typical situation. Not everyone is a typical person in the typical situation. So if you're a unique person with a unique service history or unique situation, it's your due diligence to not just take what I say, but to learn more and drill down and find out the specifics. And I definitely want to say that due diligence is important. So if I give some advice here today and you run to your computer this afternoon and move all your TSP and the stock market plunges or soars, that's not a good thing. So do your own research. If you want to get a financial planner, if you're at State, Work Life for Now can give you a referral. And if you're at AID, Staff Care can give you a referral. And go on your intranet, for that information. You can get a referral. A lot of the references I'm going to mention today are on the AFSA website. And of course, if you're a state, the ALDACs and department notices are on the department's intranet. Two final initial things. Retirement is great. I ticked out 5 years ago now at 58 as an FS1. If I hadn't ticked out, I'd be sitting in your seat now and going back to work this afternoon. But since I did tick out, I get to do other things. So retirement's great. But on the other hand, don't quit until you really have decided you need to quit, because we need people in the trenches. And these are tough times, and America's going to vote again, and maybe things will change, or maybe not. But hang in there if you can. So, and once you do tick out or whatever, you're not getting back in. So keep that in mind. The kind of the takeaways here are like physical takeaways. Have two checklists, and I hope you got them at the door. If not, we can run around some more. And the first one I want to walk through is the Foreign Service pre-retirement checklist. And next time we do this, we'll do one on one color paper, one on the other. But for now, look at the Foreign Service pre-retirement checklist. And I want to walk through these items, and then if you have questions, go ahead and shout them out, and I'll do my best to answer them. So let's just go down the line here. Always start with beneficiary designations, because today, 5 years from now, 30 years after you retire, you want your beneficiary designations to be up to date. Every year, literally, there are cases where someone dies either in service or as a retiree, and their spouse or whomever, calls in to say, well, where are the benefits? And they're told, well, they've already been paid out. And they were paid out to spouse 1.0. Or in my case, when I joined the service, I put my mom as a beneficiary designation. So, so think about who you've designated, and if there's a life change, like, again, either now or 30 years from now. If you're married, divorced, there's a death or a new person in the family, make sure the beneficiary designations are up to date. Because no matter what your will says, it is literally the case, and this has gone to the Supreme Court, that whatever your TSP designation says, that's who gets the TSP money, things like that. So, and there's a reference here you can look at to find out more information. So in your EOPF, you're always looking at the EER part of your EOPF. And I grew up in state, so I'm talking state. There is an administrative part of the EOPF, so you should look over there. And I just noticed on the TSP website, they've updated it in the last couple months, and it does now show your beneficiary designation, and you can change it right then and there. But anyway, so just make sure that's up to date always. Retirement planning seminars, as I said earlier, if you want the real information from the experts on it, please find time in your career to take some of these courses at FSI. There's a 2-day course that's for people that are more than 10 years from retirement eligibility, and there's a 4-day course for folks who are within 10 years of eligibility. And if you don't have time for 2 or 4 days, there are 2 one-day sessions that hit kind of the money part of retirement. So please sign up for those. And then when you do come to retire, by all means, if at all possible, take the month-long job search program. Well, for foreign service, it's 2 months in paid status, 1 month at FSI. It's more than job search, so if you decide I ain't gonna work again, it's not all resumes and interview practicing. There's a lot of just information about this next phase in your life. So by all means, sign up for the job search program, and you take it as you retire. So you don't take it and go back to work for 6 months. You take it and then you retire at the end. And so there's information on that there. Understand your benefits. I'm pretty sure there's no one here in the old foreign service retirement system. If they really didn't have to worry about understanding their benefits too much, because if they worked a full career, they got like 80% of their final salary. Those of us in the new system, not so much. So we, at most, if you have a 30-year career, are probably going to get 45% of your final salary. So you need to understand how much your pension's going to pay, how much Social Security you're going to get, need to understand how much money you can pull out of the thrift savings plan. So drill down into that. If you're at state, there's an employee retirement portal where you can go in and you can, say, put in some retirement date, either tomorrow or 15 years from now, and see what your benefits will be in terms of pension. And then on Social Security, if you can log into Social Security and sign up for what's called a My Social Security account, and that'll give you access to your actual Social Security data. And when you do that, be careful, because you're logging in and you're trying to get access to your Social Security data. So they want to make sure you're not the guy in Kiev or wherever trying to get in. So you're going to be asked some very technical questions from your actual credit history. So it's going to ask you, okay, the mortgage you have now, is it between this amount and this amount, this amount and that amount? Or it'll ask you, 10 years ago, did you live at this address, this is... So don't guess, because if you guess and you get a couple wrong, it thinks you're the hacker in Russia, and it's going to lock you out, then you have to go to a Social Security office. So when you go to log in, have your checkbook and your files there so you can answer the questions correctly, and then you do have access to your Social Security records, and you can see how much you'll get at different ages when you might retire. FEHB, your health benefit, is kind of a, you think about your pension and TSP, but your health benefits are incredible. And so when you retire, you get to keep them, and the government pays the same share, which is approximately 65 to 70%. So if I can editorialize, I cannot envision a future Congress taking away benefits from current federal retirees, but this is kind of the one thing, because it is really a good deal. The government's paying like 70% of your FEHB. So as I'll say at the end, that's a good reason to keep your AFSA membership up, so we can fight against that. But you do need to understand that you can keep your FEHB benefits. And you can also keep your life insurance benefits. And as it says there, you have to have had coverage in your last 5 years of service, and that's usually not an issue, but if you're doing something really unusual like the cyanide observers or something, and and they want you to suspend your FEHB. You know, just be careful. It's very rare, but make sure you don't mess up. Retirement eligibility and prior service is kind of really two things. So if you've been in the State Department Foreign Service or the USAID Foreign Service, if you've been in the Foreign Service your whole career, you're good to go. Don't worry about it. But if you were in the civil service before, or in the military, or the Peace Corps, there are things you need to do if you want credit for that other service. So when you look in your leave and earnings statement, it'll have you know, service computation date, but that's your date for leave purposes. So for leave purposes, they'll give you credit, you know, basically for anything. But for retirement, you have to have, you know, paid into the system or transferred the funds. So definitely, if you've served in more than just foreign service, if you have civil service time, military time, you need to drill down into that. And in some cases, you need to make a deposit to buy back your service. Or if you're in the civil service, you need to ask OPM to send the money over to state, which can take a year. So plan ahead and get your prior service in order. Divorce, the Foreign Service Act has unique provisions that don't apply to the civil service, that even some, you know, fancy pants divorce attorneys in Washington don't know about. So you need to understand the Foreign Service specifics. So if you've been divorced any time in your service, and that includes military service, Peace Corps, whatever, anything that you're going to include in your Foreign Service annuity time, you need to send your divorce decree and all that paperwork to the Office of Retirement. And there's the reference here tells you how to do that. Because the Office of Retirement needs to look at it and see how your divorce decree, if it does or doesn't impact how much gets what of your pension and any survivor benefits. So take care of that, you know, well in advance of retirement. Thrift savings plan. This is where it's really on you. TSP is a huge part of our retirement. You need to put as much money in it as you can. And then you need to decide your risk tolerance. You know, if you put it all in the G fund, 50 years from now, you know, it's going to be the same number. I'm exaggerating, but and if you put it all in the C fund, then, you know, then you're on a little roller coaster there as world events happen. But over time, you know, stocks have outperformed bonds. But it's really, this is something you need to decide, and you need to, you know, decide how you're going to have your funds allocated. And this is something that the FSI training, you know, does still drill down into, give some good information. And there's all kinds of information online. And then, obviously, you can talk to a financial planner. Most financial planners will probably say, hey, give me your TSP money, I can do better. Well, they want your TSP money because they can't get any money out of TSP, but they can get money out managing your TSP money if it's in a mutual fund. So they do have a personal interest in this. But, you know, if you believe that they can outperform TSP, then when you retire, you can move your money over to them. But always leave a couple $100s in TSP, because once you're out, you can't go back. But if you leave some money in, you can change your mind later and move it back in. Yes?
Question. Do we have access to the H fund? Or is that just the military, the hedge fund kind of?
No, we don't have that. And I'm not familiar with the military, what they have.
John, would you mind, for purposes of the question?
Okay. So the question was, you know, we have in TSP we have C, S, and I, G, and F. And I guess the uniform military has another fund, but I'm not familiar with it. And unless you're active duty military or reservist, I guess you don't get it. Long-term care insurance. Think about getting it. Most people buy it in their mid-50s if they're going to buy it at all. So it's not something that a lot of 30 and 40 years old do. In order to buy it, though, you have to be medically able. So if you wait too long, and then you get, some disqualifying illness, then you can't get it. Long-term care insurance, it's like home insurance. If your house doesn't burn down, then have you wasted your money on that? You don't get any money out of your house insurance if it doesn't burn down. And long-term care insurance is the same. You may never need it, but if you go to FSI and go through the presentation, they'll explain that if you do need it, boom, you're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So think about getting it. And we're all familiar, and I do have the federal long-term care insurance. But in the FSI training in the last year or two, during these sessions, they brought in a company called GEVA, the Government Employees Benefits Association, and they brief on like a dozen alternatives to the federal program. So if you have kind of more mental bandwidth than I do, and you want to really look at the other alternatives, there are lots of alternatives to the federal program. So you can do your own due diligence and do research and decide if this is something you want. Social Security, when you do retire, you can start your Social Security between age 62 and age 70. And if you start at 62, you get less per month, but you get it for more months than if you started at 70. And to know when to start it, all you need to know is when you're going to die. So most of us, hopefully, don't know when we're going to die. So you just kind of have to decide, if you retire and you're 62, do you need the money? Then, start taking the money and run. If your parents and your aunts and uncles live to be 100, you may want to wait till age 70 to start taking it in order to get more, more and then have it for longer. So keep that in mind. And if you do retire, sign up for Social Security, but then go back to work, get that ExxonMobil job or work part-time something, there is an earnings test for Social Security for the first couple years before your full Social Security retirement age. So keep that in mind. And there's more information on that in these references.
Excuse me.
Yes, is there a question?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Does Foreign Service still have, if you retire early, before 62, do they still have the part of our
Yes, so in the Foreign Service and Civil Service, there's, we all pay into Social Security throughout our whole working careers. But in the Foreign Service and, Civil Service too, especially Civil Service law enforcement officers, you can retire before you're eligible to start getting money from Social Security. So there's an annuity supplement that's a bridge. So if you retire at, 56, you get an annuity supplement, and this comes for the Foreign Service, the State Department, Foreign Service Trust Fund pays it. You get a certain amount of money per month, which is more or less equivalent to what Social Security would pay you if they could pay you before age 62. Does that make sense? And there is an earnings test for that also. So you can lose, and I did for a number of years at FSI, lose, some of my annuity supplement because I was getting, a fairly nice salary at FSI. So there is an annuity supplement. It's automatic if you're under 62, and it automatically goes away at 62, whether or not you start Social Security. So, and that's Foreign Service and Civil Service. It's the same kind of thing. Medicare Part B, you're not going to worry about this till you get to be age 65, but it's amazing when people get to be age 65. Some of them really, think about this a great deal, because basically getting Medicare Part B is great because basically all your expenses are covered and you don't have to do any paperwork, but you have to pay for it each month. And I think now it's $144.50 per month. And that's for you. If you have a spouse, it's not a family coverage, they would have to pay the same. So it's fairly expensive. So as you get close to age 65, really think about this. The bottom line is that 77% of federal retirees, and that's Foreign Service and Civil Service, end up taking Medicare Part B, but that means that 23% don't. So as you get closer, on YouTube, there's a presentation that Paula Jacob who's like a great expert on this, gave here, and she gives the same presentation at FSI about 7 times a year. So, you know, do your due diligence and see if this is something you want to sign up for. And if you don't sign up at age 65 and you change your mind a couple years later, there's a huge penalty that you're going to have to pay. So it's something you want to decide at 65. Survivor benefits,
What is your alternative to Part B? What are the other two?
FEHB. Just like now, you don't have Part B now, you have FEHB, and you have co-pays and, you know, things like that. But what Paula Jacobs says is that, hey, now you go to the doctor once a year, whatever, you know, when we're in our 70s or 80s, we go once a week, you know, so the co-pays, she argues, you know, add up. But she gives about an hour and 45-minute presentation on it, so you should watch it. She's interesting too. So
Just one more
Yes.
question on that. The premiums go up according to your income?
yes, I should have said that. So I'm poor, so I would pay $144.50 per month. But if you're kind of a 2-income family, you know, senior foreign service or something, it could be a whole lot more. So that's another issue. So so definitely, it does go up quite a bit. And they look back 2 years to your earnings to see how much you should pay now. So as you get more into retirement, if you're not, you know, working for ExxonMobil and your income comes down, eventually your Medicare Part B premiums will go down, but eventually it could be a couple years. So survivor benefits, understand the implications that if when you retire you don't elect survivor benefits for a spouse. Now if you're married to a Fed, you probably, you know, you both have a pension and you both have TSP and you both have life insurance, you may not both want to elect survivor benefits. But if you're not married to a Fed, just understand that, because when you do elect survivor benefits, your pension's reduced a little in order, you know, to quote, pay for it. Pardon me?
10%.
10% typically, but it could be 5%, but very much typically is 10%. So understand that. And, you know, obviously, almost everyone does elect survivor benefits, and in the Foreign Service, if you don't, you need a notarized statement from your spouse. So they say, yeah, I realize that I'm giving away lifetime income by signing this piece of paper. So, anyway. FEGLI, life insurance. When you do take the FSI course, you'll see a PowerPoint slide on FEGLI, which is one of the most busy PowerPoints of all time. Because basically, you know, for life insurance, there's Part A, there's Part B, there's multiples, there are all kinds of things. And when you go to retire, you get to decide, do I want to keep these? Do I want to get rid of some? Do I want to reduce some? And so, again, you need to look at, okay, so when I retire, how much life insurance do I need? You know, is a house paid off? Are any kids out of college? You know, do you have a handicapped, you know, adult kid? Do you have some reason that you need, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of life insurance? And if there isn't, then you can consider, you know, reducing it. And again, the fact that a lot of people don't know is that 75% of Feds select the following option. And this is the option that, you know, when you retire, you have your FEGLI life insurance. So for example, if your salary now is like, let's just say around $150,000, so that's basically your life insurance amount. Most Feds take the option that they retire, they keep that amount until age 65. And the theory is that by 65, the house is paid off, and you know, you don't need all this life insurance. And then at 65, that insurance is free for the rest of your life, even if it's, you know, 114 years, but it goes down by 75%. So for example, if you had $150,000 worth of FEGLI life insurance, you retire at 50, you keep it the same amount, you're paying for it, to age 65, and then over about, I think, 40 months, by 2% a month, it goes down to 25% of that amount. So that would leave, in this case, $37,500 to bury you, have a nice party, things like that. So that's what 75% of feds elect. But if you do, want to leave a large, inheritance to your kids or something, then you might want to keep it. You might want to keep multiples. So, yes.
I have a question about that. If when you retire, does the premium stay the same, or does it go up as you get older, like a typical term life insurance would?
I'm not exact,
Goes up.
Yeah, it goes up.
I know it goes up after 65. Does it goes up before?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, it goes up, it goes up. And if you have, like 5 multiples of your salary that, your whole pension's gonna pay for that, so, anyway, so thanks. We're crowdsourcing this.
Another question on
Yes,
that. You said at 65 it goes up, but I thought you said at 65 it becomes free, or is that?
so at 65, you quit paying for it, but the it goes down by 75%. So on your 65th birthday, you have $150,000 worth of life insurance in this example. And then a month later, it's reduced by 2%. Then a month later, it's reduced by 2%. And then after whatever the math is, 40 months or something, it's gone down to 25% of the original amount.
So if you have your income plus 5, it'll go down to 75% of that 6 times your salary.
Right. So whatever you have, it'll go down. But you have to elect it both on your basic, and then if you have any multiples, you make it another election on that. And if you have the coverage for your family, make an election on that. So as I said, the chart you'll see at FSI is really complicated because there are all these different options, and you have to decide on each one what you're going to do with them. So, and the final thing on this piece of paper is AFSA. Please maintain your AFSA membership in retirement, because we have lots of resources on our website, and we have presentations like this one. And so now we'll turn to the retirement planning 1 year out. And you're probably not 1 year from retirement, but even if you aren't, keep these in mind, because it's kind of like your career sometimes can be like a roll of toilet tissue paper. It gets quicker at the end, so when you're getting ready to retire, a lot of things. I'm sorry. Hey, this is free, right? You get what you pay for. Okay, let's go on this. So, annual leave. If you're like a lot of us and you have a bazillion hours of annual leave, that you've carried over and stuff, you get paid for that when you retire. And, depending on your number of hours and what your pay level is, it can easily be over $10,000. So that's a nice chunk of change you get going out the door. So, I would recommend not burning off a lot of annual leave towards the end of your career. Charleston will pay it out. They promise within 12 to 14 weeks. In my experience, it often comes earlier. So you can't game it and ask them to send it next tax year or this tax year. They'll send it as soon as they can. So sick leave, obviously you're not allowed to take sick leave when you're not sick. But even if you would think about doing that, don't do that late in your career, because sick leave will be added on for the purposes of calculating your annuity. So this is an important point. Most Foreign Service folks typically have to be at least age 50 with at least 20 years of service. So for any of those 20 years of service or any of those rules, you have to actually have those 20 years. You can't have 19 years plus a year of sick leave. You have to have the 20. But once you get the 20, then you can add on, in my case, over a year of sick leave on that, and so your annuity is calculated as though you had, instead of 20, 21 and a half years of service. And so that's more money in your annuity per month. So, as you get near your retirement, don't get sick. TSP contributions, I've already said this, contribute the maximum you can. It's taken out before you get your paycheck, so you never see it. So if you can just have them take out a whole bunch of money, you never see it, you don't miss it, because a lot of us, whatever we get in our paycheck, we spend. So if you can pay yourself first, is the saying, by having it taken out and put into the TSP, then when you do go to retire, you know, it'll be there for you to draw on. Flexible spending account doesn't exist for retirees, so in your last year of service, you know, use it. And I'll go back on TSP. So there's an annual limit on how much you can put in. But if you retire, like in September, you can still reach that limit by September. You know, you typically have it paid so you reach it, you know, pay period 26 or something. But if you're retiring, you know, in pay period, you know, 19 or something, you can, you know, front load it and get into your whole contribution in the year of your retirement. EOPF documents, you know, after you retire, anything you want out of your file, you have to file a FOIA request or whatever. So if there's anything you want in your official performance file, get it before you retire. And then if you think you're going to want to contact any colleagues in your bureau and you have the handy bureau, you know, email list or whatever, you know, download that too. Because, you know, the biggest shock of being out of active duty is, you know, you're kind of a stranger now and you can't get on the global, you know, address list and you can't do this, can't do that. So before you retire, right before you retire, please download anything you want that's, you know, unclassified. Anyway, networking, and I already mentioned this. You know, you'll lose access to the global address list or AID equivalent, commerce, agriculture equivalent. So get any contact information you want. Reemployed annuitant. I'm actually a reemployed annuitant. Despite Secretary Tillerson's efforts, it still exists, and a lot of folks do it, even though you say I'll never do it. You know, you want to stay in the game, and you know. So, but it's all about networking. There is, you know, Charleston has a you can send your resume and they'll have you on a list, but you know, not all bureaus, you know, call down and say, oh, I need someone. A lot of bureaus think they have everyone they need, and so you really need to network. So as you get ready to retire, if you're thinking about doing reemployed annuitant, talk to the bureau you're in now, the bureau you were in before. You know, say, you know, what opportunities are there, you know, and if you're well and favorably known, you know, put your resume in there. And but networking is key. Retirement elections. When you actually physically go to retire and you have the software open, it takes like 15 minutes if you know what life insurance you want in retirement, what survivor benefit, if any, you want to leave. So understand those different options so that when you do go to do the retirement application online, it goes really quickly because you already decided what you want. Out processing, obviously you want to, you know, get your diplomatic passports canceled and things like that. When I was the director of the Office of Retirement, I created, I guess, the first ever Department of State out processing checklist. You know, every post has one and every bureau has one, but there was none, you know, for the overall, hey, I'm leaving the Foreign Service. So that's on the Department of State's intranet. You can find that. It talks about, you know, separation physical, how do you submit a travel voucher from Idaho where you've retired to, things like that. And if you're with AID, my condolences, because you have an actual checkout list that you have to get physically initialed by, you know, 30 different offices. But at state, it's you don't need initials, but it's there. Retiree ID, if you're going to stay in the area and you think you might want to come back to state, and you can get a retiree ID at retirement. And it's interesting, it won't get you into FSI, but I lead a retired Foreign Service officer group that meets at Fort Myer, and it gets us in the Fort Myer, so you go figure. But even if you're leaving the area, I would say go ahead and get the State Farm Retiree ID badge. It may come in handy somehow. Retirement packet, when you do retire, get that documentation that the Office of Retirement will provide you, and keep it for safekeeping. And something that is often confusing, so the Office of Personnel Management does nothing for the Foreign Service except our life insurance. They run the FEGLI program. So if you have any question about your Foreign Service retirement, do not contact OPM, do not go on their website, because they have 1.5 million retirees, and they're all civil service. And so if you call OPM, they're not going to have the slightest idea what the Foreign Service is, and they'll probably start to give you some information that doesn't apply. So if you do have a retirement question, the HR Service Center in Charleston, hrsc@state.gov, and this is for all foreign affairs agencies that are in the Foreign Service. They are the folks you contact, except for your life insurance. And so when you retire, the Office of Personnel Management will send you a letter regarding your FEGLI life insurance, if you still have FEGLI. And it'll have a number on that, the CSI number. And you need to keep that, because for whatever reason, if you call it at OPM and you say, well, here's my name, here's my social security number, here's my eye color, they don't know any of that, but they want that CSI number when it comes time, if you have a question about your FEGLI life insurance, or if eventually someone wants to cash it in when we're no longer around. So you'll get that thing from OPM and keep it safe. AFSA, even if you've been an AFSA member with your dues taken out of your paycheck for 30 years, when you retire, that stops. Because now you're not being paid out of the payroll system, you're being paid from the Foreign Service Trust Fund, from the pension system. So you basically, or you have to rejoin AFSA, even if you've been a member for 33 years, and fill out a form in order to continue your AFSA membership as a retiree. Basically, your AFSA membership dues as a retiree are half of what they are as active duty. So even if you are moving to Idaho or wherever, please keep your AFSA membership. Again, AFSA website has a lot of information. Dolores Brown, here in the front row, is basically, if you've ever had James York over at the Labor Management Office, or any of the attorneys or grievance counselors there help you, basically Dolores helps Foreign Service retirees with any similar issues. And then we do have a retiree directory, a printed directory. It's online also. If you don't want to kill a tree, you can go online. But we have a printed directory, and it's by state. So if you move to California, you can look there and see other Foreign Service retirees in the area, whatever. After retirement, another thing, the one other thing that OPM does is they'll send you a log-on for Annuity Express, because now you're using Employee Express if you're state, and then when you retire, it'll morph, and I don't understand how it morphs. If anyone here is from CGFS, let us know, but it basically morphs into Annuity Express. And so now, because I'm a reemployed annuitant, I have both, but you'll be on Annuity Express, and you can get your information, you can see what your monthly pension payment is. Tax time, you can get your 1099, which shows how much you were paid in your annuity. HRRET has an annuitant newsletter. When I was the director of the office, we mailed out 15,000 copies a year, cost $30,000. The RET staff said, hey, we can go green, we can save a lot of money if we put it online. And I said, that's a great idea. You do it after I leave. And I left, and they did it. So you won't get it in the mail when you're retired. You put it's online, and that's fair enough. But you need, and they send out a postcard, which I'm not sure how well postcards travel if you're living in Thailand or something, but basically it's now up to us when we're retired, kind of just because it's time to the health benefits open season, so kind of around mid-November, you just automatically ought to go onto the RET website, this website here, and look at your annuitant newsletter, because it has important information that they're not going to what we're asking them, AFSA sent them a letter saying, hey, can you email this stuff? Because OPM, which is severely challenged, IT-wise, manages to email stuff to the civil service annuitants. But anyway, as of now, state doesn't email this stuff out. So it's up to you to go on there and look at the annuitant newsletter. And when I was the director of retirement, often I'd have a foreign service retiree say, well, I didn't know. And if you've had any law experience, you know that I didn't know doesn't cut anything. You know, if the information's there, you need to know it, because there are some deadlines. If you remarry after retirement, there's a deadline for getting the spouse, you know, on FEHB and on you know, survivor benefits. So do your due diligence. The annuity supplement, I mentioned this in response to a previous question. If you are under 62 and you're getting the annuity supplement, basically the end of the first week of January, you have to send Charleston a statement of how much wage income you had the previous year. And it's only wage income. It's not the rental of your condo or money you took out of the TSP. It's wage income. Because they need to decide if they need to reduce your annuity supplement. And they have a very effective way of telling you that you forgot to send the form. They stop your annuity supplement. February 1st, it'll stop. And hopefully you're paying attention and you'll notice, oh, my annuity went down by $1,000. So then you contact HR Service Center and they say, well, you should have filed this form that's explained in the RET annual newsletter. And so you file the form, and you know, I don't blame them. They're in no rush to process that paperwork. Eventually you'll get the money back, you know, and every money you should have given. But if you can just remember to look at do it a newsletter, send in your, you know, if you do have to send in the earnings thing in early January. So these are the two forms, and I guess I just finally say, if you can at all get away to FSI to take either 1, 2, or 4 day courses, it drills down obviously a whole lot more than, you know, this 45-minute presentation is done. And you know, and bring if you have a spouse, you know, bring them too. So, okay, any questions? I can do one-on-ones afterwards, so if not, yes.
With regard to the prior service military buyback, I participated in that program and I'm paying it back through an allotment. Is there a website or a point of contact I can send an email to determine what my balance is?
You can email hrsc@state.gov. And it's important that you do pay it back. And then, like in diplomacy, it's kind of the final step. It's important too. Make sure that after you paid it back and they issue a paid in full memo, that it's in your official performance file, because that final step is key. Anything else? Okay, well, thank you for coming. If anyone has one-on-ones, I'll be here for, that's all you need.